What is the difference between JUnit and TestNG? That is one of the interview questions that we, or anybody, right, will face at some point if you're looking for automation roles. So we're going to look into that. And your test basically, so you know that when you create a JUnit test, let's see if I have one. This is not even JUnit test. This is just plain Java, right? So let me open up my other open recent test automation framework. Maybe this is the one that has it. Okay. Okay. It doesn't have it, at least on my framework, but in your framework, you'll see that it says something like this. You'll see add test, right? And this is basically annotation from JUnit, right? So we'll talk about those, but we'll probably just go ahead and learn it from TestNG since our course today is all about TestNG. And then we'll give you comparison between JUnit and TestNG. So JUnit and TestNG very similar, and they're meant to do the same thing. What the TestNG is going to give you is, so this framework, not only now with the previous framework, you were able to automate and all of that, no problem, right? But you're missing test report. Report, and also your test it doesn't look that good, right? It's not human readable. So organization of the task. It's not very organized, right? So we want to make sure our test is organized and look nice because of few reasons. One is that maintainability, right? If you're going to be actively going in and maintaining your test, it is important that your test looks clean and organized. And so TestNG does provide you an ability to do that. And so let me see if my Maven has the TestNG. So I did add it last time. I think all of us actually did that on our last, when we did it last, right? So that's one thing, but if you don't know how to add a dependency to your project from pom.xml, let me know, and then we can stop and we can show you. But other than that, everybody's seen it. We added JUnit, we added Selenium, we added, WebDriver Manager. All of that was done on the last class. So we shouldn't have any problem as of right now. But if we do, just go ahead and let me know, and then we can go ahead and show you once again. But so now if I want to create a TestNG class, it has to be TestNG. So now first thing first, on the other IDE, and if you go on YouTube and try to learn TestNG, you'll see that they talk about Eclipse and Eclipse and Eclipse. They don't really talk about a whole lot about IntelliJ, because Eclipse has a plugin that creates you a class for TestNG. The TestNG class is different because if you look into your test right now, and you can see we have the main public void main, but then in the TestNG class, that is embedded, that is inside of some of the methods. So you never have to call this, right? As long as you're following the guidelines, you don't have to even say, I want to do public void main, because that is already inside within annotations. So it will look a lot more cleaner than the test cases that we have been creating so far. So the first class that I'm going to create, I'm going to say, okay, first, let's see if I can get the plugin. If I don't get the plugin, I'll just create it from scratch. So let's see if we can actually get the plugin for us on the TestNG side. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Plugin. And let's see if they have it. If they don't have, then they don't have. Okay, there we go. Seems like, do I even have that installed? It's bundled already. Okay. I want to disable that. Let's see. And it is installed, right? So TestNG XML, TestNG, okay. All right, so these are the things we don't need, but for my IDE, it already says TestNG is there. So I should be able to see some test ng. So I can see Maven here, which is fine. So if I go like this, I would like to see test ng. If I do new, it doesn't. So you see how it says Java class? I was expecting to see test ng class, right? So that's what I wanted to see. So let's create a package first. Maybe it needs a package to work with. So I'm just gonna say test and go ahead and let's see. Still don't see the test ng. Okay. All right. Well, so now that we're not seeing the test ng, it's okay. I'll just show you guys how to create from scratch. Maybe the plugin that I was using or I'm using is not enabled or something, but okay. Now, if we want to create a test ng class, I want to show you guys maybe an example. So test ng class in IntelliJ, right? So it gives us a template, whatever is the case. If you go to directly to their own website, oh, okay, it tells you how to get it. Okay, so we got this already. Dependencies, okay, in the tool window, okay. So we got that. Maybe that's fine. Create a new TestNG class in the project. So new Java class. Okay, that's fine. Never mind. So the IntelliJ doesn't have a way for us to create a template from TestNG class. Rather, they just tell you this is how you create it, right? So this is how exactly you will be able to create your TestNG class. That's it. Like they don't really have a way to, you know, create the TestNG class template by itself. That's the only thing. So that's fine. If that is the case, then that is the case. We're gonna have to create it from scratch. I'm just looking through and yeah, there are other additional setup so that way you can actually create some of your reports and those I'm aware of those, so I can go ahead and add those, not a problem. So if you look at this TestNG class, what is different? You don't see any main method anywhere, right? Notice this, right? So let's go ahead and copy this and then paste it over there. So I'm going to create a new class. I'm just going to say Java class learning test ng, enter. And you see like you got all these things going on. So if all I have to do is basically, let me just go ahead and change the name and then I can get rid of this now and that's it, right? So now obviously I'm going to remove this from here. And I'm going to probably like create my own right now and then we can go from there, right? So all these things. So TestNG have annotation. For example, the first one I'm going to say at before, right? And oh, what am I doing? Okay. Let's see. B is capital. Okay, before test, right? Before test is coming from TestNG, and you have to say public void, and then you can give it a name, and that could be, let's say, verify. No, when you say before test, that means you want to do something before even test runs. So I can say setup, right? For example, okay, this is just a setup. Okay, so I can say even setup driver, for example, whatever the name that I would like to do. And then I say after test, right? So A is capital after, and then you can see like you have a lot more annotation from TestNG, which is available to you. So you can say after test, right? Once you selected after test, you can also say public void, and you can say maybe like tear down. Tear down means like your test is done and you're satisfied. You just want to like close anything if you have. So maybe we want to go ahead and close the browser so it doesn't actually stick around, right? Close down the browser. Okay, and this is where maybe we want to create the browser. I haven't written any code yet, right? So this is just us kind of like coming up with an idea, and then we will go ahead and do that. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put these two together. Okay, it's fine. And we also know like how our code runs, right? It runs in the order in which the line of code are written, right? But in this case, it's going to be different. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down, and I'm going to write my test. I'm going to say add test. Okay, so now this is also coming from testng. Annotation are same for JUnit for test, right? For this specific one. So you got to be careful which one you're choosing. So you choose the add test for, for the test ng. Once you did that, you can say public void. So now that you're writing a test, you want to make sure the description of the test, or at least the name of the test, actually, resembles what you are about to do. And okay, let me just fix this, how it looks. Okay. So the name can be like verify if user can, let's say, search on Google, whatever, right? I just want to write a very small test. And immediately after, you can see that, this sign comes in and you're intelligent. It's just giving you indication that this is a test. I know it. If you want to run, I'll run it for you. So IntelliJ is ready to run your test at this point. So the next thing what you want to do, and by the way, so far I have done nothing, but in the class, I just added 3 from scratch, and I can remove all this import for now. And then if you don't have those import, what's going to happen is that it's going to say, oh, these 3 things are red. So you're going to just go ahead and hover, and it's going to be importing class. And you want to make sure that you are getting it from testng. And so it's the same thing for import class as well. And that's it. So these 3 imports is necessary. Okay, so everything is from scratch. And we're writing the first test ng test. Okay. Now in this case, on your test itself, you want to write the steps that is going to be for testing, only testing related, not like driver setup and all that. But we do have another one is called driver setup. So this is where I'm going to say web driver manager. And I'm going to go ahead and say Chrome driver. We probably should do Firefox or something at some point, and then setup, right? And then I'm going to say web driver is equal to new Chrome driver. Now, with this method that I just did, it will work. The only problem that I see here is that this web driver only belongs to setup. So I am not going to be able to call it here. So if I do call, let's say driver, do something for me, and it doesn't know where the driver is. So we do want to put this guy outside. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put it outside and in the class scope, right, or level. Here, the way that I went ahead and declare my driver, that is called instance variable. That means I don't have a value for this driver just yet, but I will create the value when I have it, which is right here. So now I can just go ahead and say driver value is going to be new driver. That's it. So this guy has to run first. Otherwise, my test is not going to work, because if this block of code didn't run, then this driver doesn't exist, and therefore my test is not going to run. So just keep that in mind. So at this point, I'm going to say get, right? So let's say we are just getting Google or something. Okay, let's just go ahead. So we're going to Google. That's the first thing. And then we're going to go ahead and find element. And you guys already know this, so we shouldn't be having a problem. So if I want to go ahead and start something here, and we did it like hundreds of times, the same test, right? So it shouldn't be a mystery. So this guy right there, we're going to be using name, and name is equal to Q. So I'm going to go ahead and say by name maybe, okay, right there. And then it's basically a Q. Okay, so this guy is a web element, right? So I'm going to say, I want to create a web element name search box, right? Is equal to this. The search box is equal to this. So I'm going to say search box, right? The first thing I'm going to do to the search box is I want to type something. So I want to send keys to that. And I'm going to say search box type this for me, like let's say MacBook or something, MacBook Pro. And then second, I'm going to say search box, go ahead and send key again. And this time I want you to enter keys, and I want you to enter the physical enter from the keyboard. Okay, so not only that I enter something and then followed by I entered from the keyboard itself. Okay, so notice I didn't have to copy and paste this twice. Is because why? Is because why, guys? Tell me. What's happening 17, 18, and 19? I'm dealing with the same element twice, and I'm removing the need for me to copy this couple times and use it again and again. How is this possible? What it is that in Java that we did here? Who can answer this? You guys still can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's, like I said, if you don't know it, just say, hey, I'm very confused. Please, you can explain. So I know that I have to explain. Otherwise, if you know it, that's great. You can give it a shot, but always give it a shot, because even if you're wrong, it's fine. It's just interaction. You're just making the most common sense you can, think of, or at least you're saying something that you think, right? It's your answer. And then we can correct it if it's wrong. So what's happening between these three?
Can you please say the question again?
Okay. The question here is that um, here seems like we're creating a variable, and this line right here is called search box. So you see our interaction with the search box. First, we entered a string, and then second, we clicked enter from the keyboard, right? Twice, two interaction. We could have done the same thing by copying and pasting twice. But in this way, it does look cleaner. But what happened? How were we able to do this with Java? Do we know why we create variables? Then you can probably explain if you really think about it. So in this case, this variable has a data type. The data type is web element, right?
Yes.
So now you're creating web element and you're storing it inside of a name called search box, and you're calling that on demand as you need. So what just that happened, right? When you create a variable, there is a purpose. So you can call it later. You can reuse it without having to write that piece of code again and again and again, right? Or even the value itself, right? You don't want to be writing the same line of code and copying and pasting, copying and pasting. It's going to look horrible. But not only look horrible, you're duplicating so much code, which is not recommended. If you wrote it somewhere and you feel like it has a reusability situation later in the lines, then you should create a variable. So in this case, what I did, line number 17, I said, okay, this is a web element. Everybody agrees, right? Because we're getting the element from using our driver. So I said, I'm going to create a web element type, right? If I say this is a string, it's going to give me an error because obviously this is not a string. Okay. This is a web element, right? Up until here, we're just grabbing the web element. That's it. So that's why I had to give it a name with the web element type. The type of this variable is called web element. Once I have that stored, search box, now I can do more than one thing. I can call it whenever I need it. So I need it twice after creating. One was to type it and the other one was to go ahead and click enter. So up until here, if I run it, let's see what happens. Okay, so You guys can probably get a clue here, but um, let's just finish. Let's just have that finish, and then we'll ask following questions. Um, okay, so it did do what I was asking it to do. My next question to you guys is that notice like our code to create the driver in the bottom. How is this not failing? And I'll explain because I don't think you guys will know the answer, because this before test tag is designed to run before test. Okay. So no matter where you keep this, you can copy and go ahead and keep it all the way in the bottom, right? Even you're keeping the before the after method, it will still run this guy first before running this guy. So it runs this once, only one time before this guy. Okay. How does it know this guy? Because you tagged it right here, test. So that's why test engine tests a bit more organized, but it does have their own rules and syntax that you have to follow in order to be able to create TestNG test, right? TestNG test is their own rules and regulations. There are rules of thumb that you follow to create your testing. Your script doesn't change. The script still stays where it is, how you would create it, but simply you need to know that the tags that you create, this each tag has a meaning. So far you learned one thing is that before test tag will run before this guy, right? Um, so all of this code will run right exactly after the before test. And we also learned that after test will run after this guy, right? So we can now go ahead and tear down. We can say driver.close. Now in this case, every time a test finish, it will close the driver, and then it will reopen and it will close, and it will reopen, it will close. So now you can have more than one test. So let's say the same exact test you have twice. I'll just say Google number 2 and this is 1, right? So you're doing search, and this is maybe instead of MacBook, you're just searching for something else, like let's say um, let's say um, holiday gift ideas or something, right? So now you have two different tests. They're all unique to themselves. So if I run all of it together, and you'll see one thing that is taking place. MacBook, okay, and it's done. As soon as it's done, it goes to holiday, and that's it. So notice what just happened. Both of the tests had these the same prerequisite steps. So this WebDriver was still alive until both tests finished. Both of the tests were done, and only then it finished the whole thing. So now if you have 10 tests, you don't have to close and open, close and open, close and open, right? So now there is other annotation. The next annotation that you want to learn is maybe like, let's say, method, right? Before method, after method. So let's look at that one. So after method and before method, right? So now what's going to happen is different, right? Now what's going to happen is it will look very different. So I'm going to run the same test and see if it will look slightly different than what you've seen before. Okay, so what just happened, right? It just completely took off and closed the browser and is opening up a new one. And then it did the test. Both tests passed. Which one was more efficient? It was probably the first method. So these tags are provided to you from TestNG in order to make sure that you do whatever you need to do with, right? So you as a test designer, somebody who's going to say, I'm going to run my test in certain ways, you are able to now play with this method. So let's go ahead and look into the difference and kind of like go a bit more into definition side instead of writing some code. So test ng annotations and a list with an order, right? So let's go into this. Maybe it's even better way to get a good explanation. Yeah, there we go. So these are some of the test ng annotation that you can use on your tests. Are you required to use them? No. But do you want to use them? Maybe. It's really, really depending on what you are trying to achieve. So in this case, if you're writing a test and you have some steps, maybe and maybe, which is not part of your test, but you want to run them regardless before each test, then you want to create maybe like before test or maybe before method. It really, really depends on how you want to do this. Each one of them is a method, right? Even if you tag them tests, they are all as a whole classified as a method. So when you say that, that means it's going to go ahead and run the test method before. If you do before method, then it will basically run it once before each time compared to before test, it will run once and that's it for the whole class, right? So it is a bit more confusing if you really, really dig down a little bit. So in order for you to reference and say, okay, maybe I want to use before suite, maybe I want to use before test, and this is where you get the definition. You don't have to memorize them, right? You just know how to use them by reading and understanding what is the execution order for this method. But the test ng is nothing but this, right? This is how your test is going to look like. You have a tag um, for you to use. Now, I did promise you guys that we're going to have a report automatically generated by TestNG. In order to get that, obviously, we don't have that here right now, but in order to get that, there are a little bit of settings that you have to do. But on Eclipse, which is another IDE, and is very compatible with TestNG, it doesn't require that setting because it already assumes that you're using TestNG. But in our case, we have to do that setting. So I'm going to go ahead and click on preference. And once I click on that, okay, I just gotta find that plugin, install maybe TestNG. Once I do that, I'm gonna go and click on, never mind, not there. Tools, maybe. No, I think it's right here. Let's see. I did that like last time, but it's just not something that you can remember, right? Let's see. Preference, no. I think it's the project setting, but okay. Repair IDE. Okay, so I'm gonna do it, oh yeah, it's a run configuration. Okay, my bad. So if you click on this and you click on edit configuration, once you click on it, you see that you have a completely new configuration for running your TestNG test. So you click on this guy because this guy is the one responsible for running your test. You then go ahead and click on your, let's see, code coverage. And now you have to add some class path to this. So I believe, let's see, I forgot the name of the class path. Let me see, parameter. Oh, listeners, my bad. Okay, never mind. So you have to have a listener, right? Otherwise, it doesn't create a report. So if you do use default report, that's it. It will create the report. But you can also add whatever that you like, right? So TestNG, just go ahead and write, and you can see TestNG HTML reporter. You got the test listener, whatever. This is also for TestNG. So really, whatever you want to choose in this case, I'm going to choose the first one. Now that I added this, use default reporter, this will also probably use it too. But let's see, I want to do without the default first because I'm curious. And I'm going to run my test real quick, and then it should create me a report now that we chose. Why do we need a report after running test? List automation. Why do we need report? Who wants to give me a logical answer? You don't have to know the answer. You can think about it.
To show the test report that I did the test and run it and send it to maybe the Q man higher up.
Yeah, of course. If your manager comes and he like trusts you all the way, that's a different story. But it doesn't really. It's not a good thing for us as the automation guys, right? Like they trust us and we just run it. That's no. We want to be able to provide some, documents so we can cover our, trails. So so now let's say you send out an email to your team to say everything looks good on automation side. We are okay to releasing, right? At least you can say automation team is all thumbs up for release. Everything looks good. And you send out that email because you are the lead, for example. But then nothing in that email, right? But in that email, in that very email, if you put the test report and say everything looks good and we're okay for release, and release goes, and let's say somehow things didn't go well, and they come running back to you, what happened? And you can say, okay, let's look at our tests. What it covered? Well, our test automation does not have coverage on this part of the area because that's where the issue is, right? So we have to create new tests. There's nothing that I can do. It wasn't covered, right? So at least you will be able to show, right, your what kind of test cases that you covered, right? The other thing is that sometimes it is required. Your manager would very much like to see the report, period, right? So that is like, that happens 99% of the time, but like this 1% or 2 or whatever, 5, 6, 7% of the times where you have managers that really, really like, your work, and they feel like they can have full trust and they just go based off of what you say, and that's it, you know. And that happens in actually in smaller teams and companies. So I'm going to go ahead and open the report, as you can see, and let's see how it looks like. This is this is pretty bland, I would say, right? It's a default report, guys. So I'm going to probably get a little bit better report. So as you can see, default suite, and this is on the test output. That's where it is. Test output, it gets automatically generated by your listeners. So I'm going to go back to run configuration. I'm going to add a few more reports to this. So click on that, guys. Okay, and then let's see. Configuration. Where is my listener? Right there. So now I'm going to add one more, and let's see. Just gotta set test ng. Let's see. So test engine listener adapter, maybe. Okay, that's fine. And then I'm also gonna do this thing. So now if I run it, let's see if I can get a little bit better report, because I didn't really like this report. It's very bland. It doesn't have any colors, no pie chart or anything. Okay, finished. So this time we should be able to, once it's done, tear down still taking place. So once that is done, we should probably see, oh, it gave us an XML as well. Okay, but we see now we have a lot more, you know what I'm saying? Look how many things came in because we selected everything that was available to us. So not only that you get a JRED report, you get the old version of report, you get the new version of report. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this now, but you have a lot more at this time. So this looks a little bit better than what we saw before. You can actually select the theme also, switch to Ultra theme. So this is probably the brand new version of these reports that they have now. So here it shows that test passed. So you had 2 tests, okay? And this is 1, this is 2. All 2 tests actually passed. So this report is interactable. You can actually go ahead and either take a screenshot and send it to your manager. You can actually send the whole HTML file, so that way he can actually click through and see which tests pass and which tests fail. Um, okay, so any questions so far on how to create those test reports? All right. So it's part of the IDE. So if you didn't have to go through this setting that I go through, if you were using the IDE, which is most compatible with TestNG. But ultimately, yes, TestNG is something that you're using, which is your second framework um, to write this test. But at some point, we're going to be using something called Cucumber, and that is where you want to stick to. We want to make sure that we even get a job in Cucumber because that is the latest, framework, which is much more, um, there are much more jobs on that because it's brand new and not everybody knows. So you get to go and do things on your own sometimes in teams. And that's why you hear when I say one of our previous students became a lead and he's doing this, or he's creating the framework himself. And it's because the team doesn't have any expertise on those kind of um, technologies where you will have, right? Um, and some teams don't. There are people still on that Stone Age because 10, 15 years later, maybe like let's say a tester joined the team 10, 15 years ago and he's doing very well. He's basically testing, and everything is working just fine. So manager have no problem. Whatever he's doing, it's okay. And 10, 15 years later, they realize this guy is killing himself by doing all this testing himself all the time. Nobody else knows this, but he knows the only way to test it. And now they said, okay, why don't we automate to remove some of his stress? And now this guy says, I don't know how to automate. I don't know how to do that. Now this guy is not going to be somebody who they're going to just go ahead and replace it. This guy is a subject matter expert, right? Who knows the app in and out. He does testing from his brain. He doesn't even write it down the way that he were supposed to. So they can't get rid of him, or they don't want to get rid of him. He's been there. He's been loyal to the company. So what do they do? They hire someone like you. You join and you work with this guy. You tell them, give me the test cases that you would like to automate. And that guy says, okay, here's your assignment. Go ahead and create this test case. And he doesn't even write it down because he's not used to it. He just goes and tells you and shows you in a meeting, right? And you see it and you then automate and you then ask for his approval. He's okay. Then you move on to the next task. Everything that I have said is a real scenario for somebody who's been working for the last 3 weeks, actually. And it's been such a pain for him, but he's been doing it. The first 2 weeks, he himself had to learn all this, right? Because the first 2 weeks, like, oh, okay, we're gonna automate. And that person, like I said, for that company, somehow she's very important because everybody knows that she absolutely knows everything all around the how the app works, right? So, and she doesn't believe in documentation, doesn't write documentation, whatever. But when you are like really somebody who's working there for so long, you're so comfortable, you don't even like, realize documentation could have saved a lot of time. It is frustrating for the person who's going to join and then work with them. Just go on a meeting every time you need some assignments and she explains and then she shows you and then you automate it. And after that, she says, okay, I like it. And then we move on to the next one. So it gets annoying a little bit, but it's working. But this is the situation, right? You cannot expect to see in a certain ways in a team. And everything that I just explained in a team, this is not the real situation, right? This is maybe once in a million kind of situations. People have moved on over the years. A lot of teams and somebody who's in QA, they were able to learn automation and move on and kind of make a lot more progress. But where and there are some teams where maybe this person didn't have the opportunity to learn automation because she's such a busy person doing only and only manual testing. And you can understand from her point of view where everybody needs her at this point. Everybody's pulling her left and right for her knowledge on the app. So where is the time for her to do automation if she wants to do it, right? She doesn't. So this is what happened, right? One of our student joined, and this is exactly what happened. The first 2 weeks was a struggle. Struggle because we don't know what she wants. Sometimes she comes and says, okay, I want this, and then he writes it, and then the next day is like, no, 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 you haven't, you didn't do this. You need to do, but okay, but you didn't write it down for me. Now I missed this step, right? Ultimately, he asked her, is it okay if you write down the step by step, so that way I don't forget this. And she's like, no, I don't have time for all this stuff. You just, whenever you finish it, let me know. We'll go on a meeting. I'm okay with spending time on the meeting, because writing it down is just too much work for me because I have so many other things to do. So it is what it is, right? The company has money and they're spending on one of our student. It's okay. It's gonna take longer. It's just that we don't want to get frustrated because of that. But that is one scenario. There is many, 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 many more scenarios where companies try to do automation, but then they fail the first time. They try second time and they fail, and the third time it works because they hired somebody who knows um, to start from scratch and who knows how to do it from the very beginning, do it the right way. Okay, so now that we see this, right? And one of the skill set for Java that we did earlier, right? Remember inheritance? How many people remember inheritance in Java? So this is one of the topic I wanted to touch along with our test automation, because remember we talked about it. We're going to go into advanced Java, but we're going to do it while we are learning how to write test automation. So that way we kill two birds in a single stone. Um, so the first thing first, I can see few things moving into a specific location. And inheritance is something that I'm mentioning is because if I want to write another test in another class, I can immediately see this is being copied and pasted. And I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that I can reuse the driver creation. Okay, I want to reuse so that way I don't have to copy and paste. So for that purpose, we're going to use inheritance. How many people remember what inheritance is?
I think inheritance is a method. So from different class, we can call the method. It's make a hierarchy between the classes. We could create the method and in this class, and we can reuse this.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. I mean, you got that mostly correct. So inheritance is something that will allow us to create something in one class and being able to call it from another class. So the way it works is child and parent relationship. So let me just go through some of the definition because it is um, something maybe like you'll face this as an interview question. So these things you're gonna face more on the interview side actually, rather than these things. These things they already know. Anybody should actually know it. If they even claim they know Java, then they should know these things from here to here, and no question about it, right? So now if you go down the list and you're clicking on inheritance, and it says in Java, it is possible to inherit attribute or method from one class to another. We group the inheritance concept in two categories. One is a subclass, which is child. So the class that inherits from another class. We're probably going to use this right now. And then we have superclass, which is parent. The class is being inherited from. The inherit from a class is use extends keyword, and we're going to be using the extend right here, as you can see as an example. So it is taking vehicle. It is basically inheriting vehicle using the word extend, and then later it creating an object from the vehicle in order to call some of the methods from the specific class. Okay, so just keep that in mind, and we're going to be creating that now. Okay, and then this is another one right here as an example. So let's do it. And then, so now moving forward, we're gonna probably write a lot more TestNG classes, and we want to reuse our driver. So I'm going to go ahead and now create myself maybe a class and put it, and this is, I'm going to say driver, right? Okay, driver. So because it's oh, never mind. This is a file. This is a file, right? It's not even Java. So I'm gonna go and delete this real quick and then create it again, new Java class, and I'm gonna say driver. Drivers, because we may have Firefox even there, right? So we'll talk about those at some point. But so now in this class, do I need a main method? Who wants to answer this?
The question was,
In this class, do I need a main method?
yes. No, because we will not run the code here, I think.
Exactly. We're not going to run anything. We're just going to call it from here. So wherever we're going to call it, as long as it has main, it will be able to, execute it. So we're good. We're not executing anything here. We're just keeping things so we can later go ahead and reuse. So in this case, I'm going to say public. Oh, okay. Public void. You know what? Public, maybe we're going to say web driver. If I say void, it doesn't do any return, right? And we don't want that, right? Okay. Public web driver, and give it a name, maybe lowercase drivers. I don't know. Or browsers for now. Let's see. All right, and then add a return statement. Okay, we're gonna add a return statement. Come on. So it's going. Okay, import class. That's fine. So this is gonna return just the driver itself, right? So, so first we have to go ahead and do all of that here. So I'm gonna say WebDriver Manager. So I'm gonna call that here. I'm gonna say setup. So if I say Chrome, like let's do something like this, right? String browser. So whatever browser you want, based off of that, it will create a specific browser. So if you want Firefox, it will create Firefox. That's how we're going to create a reusable method. So now I'm going to say if browser dot equal, right? Let's say if browser dot equal Chrome, then do this, right? Else is Firefox. So Firefox is happening by default because else doesn't take anything, right? So we'll do it like that. So I'm going to say WebDriver Manager, and I'm going to say, in this case, not the browsers, I'm going to say driver, whatever. The naming is insane, right? Because you're going to say, wow, you named everything. It's like so confusing. So just hold on for a second. If I'm naming this all crazy, just we'll change the names maybe later to be more relevant. Return WebDriver. So now, local variable, didn't we just create that here? Okay. Okay, WebDriver driver. Oh, what am I doing? Okay. That's what I did wrong. Okay. Driver. So we just want this guy. Initialize this variable. Okay, no. So initially, obviously, the driver is going to be a null. Yeah. The value driver is always null. Yeah, that's fine. We're gonna go ahead and add it now. So WebDriver Manager dot Chrome driver dot setup, right? And then we're gonna say drivers is equal to new Chrome driver. The next one, what if somebody doesn't want Chrome driver, they want something else, right? So let's say we can do WebDriver manager, get me Firefox dot maybe like setup, and then driver is equal to new Firefox driver, right? And you can actually do more if you want to. So you get the picture right now, right? So all of the browsers, we're going to put it into this kind of logic. So depending on what you need, you're going to get that kind of drivers. So in this case, if you go in here, you can even go into your first test. Let's do it on the first test first, and then we will probably do it somewhere else also. So notice like we have these two lines. Because we're going to be doing Chrome, we don't even need this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say class this extends drivers, right? So I'm going to create an instance of this class so that I can call some other method within. So I'm going to say drivers. Okay, so I'm going to say driver D is equal to, and obviously the reason I'm putting it like this is because I just want everybody to know that you can name whatever you want, right? And I'm going to say initializing by saying new drivers, that, right? So now I can say D, I can replace both of these line by saying D dot browsers. Okay, browsers take something. So I'm going to say Chrome. I want Chrome. And that's it. So now I'm going to say driver is equal to this. And obviously this has to be a web driver. All right. And that's it. Okay. So this was changed. We're just going to probably run it to make sure it works. And then once that is good, then we go into the other one. We'll do the same, right? So we don't have to do that. Now you may say, wait a minute, you still have two lines. So what was the purpose? The other one was two line and it's easy. No, it's the purpose is that this driver will handle drivers in a special way. So what's going to happen here, you may want to switch between browsers, right? You may want to run some tests in Chrome. You may want to run some tests in Firefox. And this driver will say, call this method and tell me what you want, and I will give it to you. So let's expand this a little bit more, right? So if somebody gives you, if it's Firefox this, and then else if, let's make it a little bit more in a way that it kind of is Safari. And then obviously it needs this. Safari driver setup, and then Safari driver, and then so all this code, obviously you don't want to Edge driver. Okay, so just let me know if it doesn't make sense to you guys, right? Because we're just diving directly into a bit more, dynamic and a little bit more, organized way to make sure that our task is reusable as much as possible. So notice like this huge block of code, you're able to call it to your task with only a two-liner, and that's it. So now I can say I want Firefox, and this should open Firefox. I just want to make sure I have a Firefox browser before I even do this. 1 second. And I do not have Firefox, but I do have Safari, right? So I'll just say Safari, okay? Just to show you guys. I don't want to go through the download. So now if I say Safari, and it's going to run in Safari, but there is some setup on Safari that you have to do. And this is something that you guys have to realize. Safari is special, meaning they have process in place that you need to do before you can even run the test. If I run it right now, it will give me an error. So first I'm going to open up my Safari and I'm going to go ahead and enable. You have to enable the automated test and stuff by going into developer, and you want to say allow remote automation. Okay. If you don't do that, it will not work. Just keep in mind. The second thing is if your Safari is already open, it will also not work. So you want to go ahead and quit Safari. And that's it. Now, if I run my test, it should actually go ahead and open up Safari and actually run the same exact test. Okay, so notice like Safari was open and it's running the test. Okay. So just keep in mind, different browsers, they do have small here and there rules and regulation that you have to follow, but everything else is going to work as long as you download it. Everything else is going to work as is, except for Safari. It just needs that developer tool where you have to enable this. By the way, Safari does gives you the ability to do more than just testing on Safari. You can actually change between user agent. You can actually you can simulate Chrome. You can simulate, Microsoft Edge directly in here. You can also do Firefox, and you may say, okay, how is this possible? Is because what happened? Edge, when first they created Edge, they realized not a lot of people were using, and then they have huge company, budget and resources going into Edge maintenance. So later in I think 2017 or 2018, Microsoft decided to go ahead and take WebKit, right? WebKit, which is the uh, under the hood, right? That Chrome uses and Firefox uses and also Safari uses, right? So it decided to go and take the WebKit and hook it up in as an engine so that I don't have to maintain it. They can only maintain the looks and feels, and that's it. So in a way, if you run your test actually in Safari, you're probably covering more than one browser. So it's the same for Chromium. If you run it on Chromium, you're probably covering more than one browser. But again, look and feel is different. So you want to test them on the real browser in order to make sure that you are accurately testing on the browser based. Any question on the inheritance side where we were able to do this, and we now have the ability to switch between different browsers. So for example, here I don't need this anymore. I'm going to go ahead and call this by extends drivers, so I can actually say I want the drivers, and I'm going to go ahead and create my object outside so I can call it whenever I want. Maybe my object is going to be let's see, the same way, right? Drivers, and then whatever D is equal to new drivers. And then that's it. And now I can just go ahead and add it here and creating browsers. So it's going to be driver is equal to D dot browser. And I can say Chrome, whatever I want, Edge browsers, anything at this point, right? Because everything is possible at this point, right? All of the browser were configured for me, so I am good. So you see, you get a single line to do all of your work. Now, question to you guys is that if you do that, right? Now, if I create another TestNG class, I don't have to rewrite like, oh, WebDriver manager, get me this and get me that. I can simply use this line, okay, as long as I extend the driver, okay? So that's keep in mind. Now in the driver itself, I can create more methods, okay? More methods that can be used over and over and over again if we need to. So just keep that in mind. So this was one of the way for us to reuse our driver. And this is one of the way for us to write our TestNG test. So the next thing that I would say, obviously we skipped the break for today, so we're gonna leave early. Any questions, anything that I can explain anywhere you guys have struggled or anybody has struggled where we want to spend a few minutes to look at it? Anybody has any concerns before we even go to the next topic? All
No.
looks good, right? You guys are going to be able to later create test and test, right?
Yes.
If you look at this, it's very clean, right? It's literally any code that belongs to the test itself is under this guy and with a name on it, right? Any code that doesn't belong to tests, but it should be done before, it's right here, right? So it doesn't have to be a single line. You can do other things too. You can write more codes. So it's the same thing. After, you're just closing the browser. So actually, um, for after test, you might not have a lot of things to do except for just closing. So this might be always the same, right? But you may also want to go to the account. Sometimes some of the tests where after test is done, you want to go to the user account and to remove some of the permissions, whatever is the case, to make sure that your test is, also doing some cleanup. So then you might be able to use after. So now let's compare JUnit and test ng, because in JUnit, we didn't do a lot of tagging, right? We just wrote the test in IDE and we brought it here, right? And that's all we did, right? So let me see if I can open up one of my JUnit test and maybe first day. I don't know if this one has it. Let's see. Open a new, just want to see where we have, okay, this is it. This guy has it. So if I go into this test, this is a JUnit test, and we probably overlooked, and I did promise that we're going to talk about these tags later. So now you know how this tags work. So notice in JUnit, we have closing of the driver happening in the middle of the code. And you probably was wondering, how come this guy didn't interrupt my test? Is because this is designed to run after. So JUnit tag also is very similar to test ng. And actually in JUnit, you're gonna see that the tag name is much more simpler looking, not very descriptive. So it's really, really hard for you to know which annotation is doing what, because it's not descriptive. You have to go and maybe Google it. That's one thing. But that doesn't really stop you from writing the test in the similar manner. Notice like there is no main method in here, right? Even in the JUnit test. So when you import test, you don't even see no main method, but it's still running your test is because this tag are designed to run this test, and they already have this main method within them, right? So they know exactly if this is what you want to run. Otherwise, you wouldn't tag it, right? So you see how the tests were done. You got the web element, and then element was created, and after that, this and that. So I would say a lot of your takeaway could be also from IDE to see, okay, if I want to write this test, you can probably compare and write it yourself first, and then tell IDE to write the same test, and then improve yourself to say, okay, now I can go ahead and write my test this way because IDE is doing a little bit better job because it is a automated tool to begin with. Just keep in mind, Selenium is not huge, right? We talked about it last class. As long as we know how to deal with these elements. So far, okay, tell me true or false. So far, we know how to deal with text box. We know how to deal with buttons, right? We can just simply click and things like that. We also dealt with link. We didn't deal with drop down. So let's deal with drop down on the next test right here, which is test ng test. And then maybe we're gonna go ahead and learn something today. So I'm gonna say add test, and here I create a new one, public void, and I'm gonna say verify if drop down works, whatever. I mean, just give it a name that is the most related to what you're about to write, okay? So camel casing starts with the first letter being uppercase, except for the first word. The first word is going to be lowercase and everything else should be uppercase, the first letter for each and every single word, and it will not raise an error or anything. So it's going to be fine. So in this case, we went to driver.get, whatever is the case. Instead, we're not going to go to Google. We're going to go to our test website. So let's see if I go into insurance. Okay, so let's find a drop down to deal with. Okay, this time personal, maybe go to auto, it's fine. Auto insurance, this, and there is a drop down here, right? This is a drop down. So what if I want to select John Doe, right? What if I want to select this and how this is going to work, right? So let's look into this one first, and then obviously we'll deal with other drop down as well with more options. So I'm going to go into this, and in drop down, it's not simply, okay, here's my drop down driver.find element, and in go ahead and, you know, select something by, you know, that's not the simplest way. It requires for us to put our drop down and kind of tell Selenium this is a drop down. We need to let drop down. Actually, we need to let Selenium know that this is a drop down, and then it will treat it that way. So how do we do that? So first, you can actually do find element and all of that to locate the element. That's the first thing you can do. And there's more than one way of implementing this. So my way may be more, you know, broken down, and there are more with inline. So this one is, this dropdown has select. Notice it has to be select type, otherwise it's not going to work. So you take the value from select. Now this one has a name, so I'm going to take the referring agent and with a name on it. So I'm going to say name. Okay, and this is referring agent. So this guy is a drop down. So I have to now declare this as a drop down so that way it can work, right? So the first thing first, the way that you declare it, you to say is a select type. Okay, see Selenium, and it will do basically it needs to be said select type, right? That's the first thing. And then the next thing you need to do is that you need to give it a name. So what do you want to name this? So I'm going to say, obviously, I'm going to say referring agent as a name, right? And instead of this, I'm going to slightly change to a, and I'm going to say equal to this. And now I'm going to say new select, okay, right there. And now new select takes the whole thing, okay? And now this one knows, now we just told Selenium that this is a dropdown, okay? Now that we told Selenium this is a dropdown, I can say, I want to select something. So I will just go ahead, I'm going to say dot. I want to select something by value, for example. I want to select something by visible text. So you have three different options in terms of selecting the drop-down option, right? So now if you want to select this by value, you want to make sure this has value, otherwise it's not going to work. So if you click on it, and then you can see select option is there, value is also there. Okay, so these are options, and you see value there. So you can use value. You can see visible text is, which is this, it's right there. So all three options will work. So first thing first, we can say we want to select by visible text. Okay. So select by visible text, and this is your visible text, right? That's the first thing. So it will select John Doe. So let's go ahead and run it. And once that is done, we will probably do, and this is going to run only this test. Okay, so it's not going to run everything. That's it, it's done, right? It's selected. You guys saw it, or you guys want me to put a pause in there? I'm going to put like a pause or something, right? Put like maybe like 15 seconds. 15 seconds wait. Oh. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and run it. Okay, so it's selected, as you guys can see, right? It selected it, and 15 seconds later, it'll close it. So now that we learn how to select by visible text, the next one is select by Let's do the next one, right? The next one, let's say we want to use select by value, maybe index value. You guys know index starts with 0. So you can say, I want to select the first option, it'll be 0. I want to select the second option, it'll be 1. Okay. So now 1 will, it doesn't care what the option is. It's only going to select the first option that it can find. Okay. So that's the idea. So index value, you use it when you need it, meaning if you realize on a drop down, you don't care about what are the options. You just want to select the first one so you can continue, then that's what you use, right? You don't care. You just care about the option. That's it. Okay, so that's your second way of doing the same selection. Okay, so now we go into the third one. We'll go ahead and click, and then we're gonna say select by value. Now value happen to be the same exact as visible text. It's a coincidence, but we're gonna use the same thing. And if I run it, it will also do the same work. Okay, so it's selected. Any question on drop down, guys? We good? So now we go back in a web application. We don't have a lot to deal with. We learn how to do input box. We learn how to do buttons. We learn how to do links already. We learned the drop down already, right? And these are some of the ways that we can access them and be able to interact with them, right? Right now, you have all the possible tools that you need for you to create a task from scratch. Now, today, basically what I will probably ask you guys to do is that um, moving forward, because we're going to be writing, we want to write as many tests as possible, right? So it's not just because, oh, there's a homework, so I have to do this, right? Obviously, homework is going to be given, which is different. But what I need you guys to do is I'm going to reach out probably tomorrow or day after to those who didn't do our final Java homework. And if you didn't do it, we need to know why, and if you would still want to, continue on this class, because it doesn't make sense if you didn't learn Java, right? But if you and if you did the homework and everything with Java and you're up until here, so you're still like up to date, right? You're already up to date and you're doing fine. But at this stage, we need somebody to work with, right? Meaning, let's say you want to do pair programming, like just by yourself, sometime it will get a little bit too much. And so, and even at work, when you first start, you might not be working on your own, because it is so important that they will probably just pair you with somebody and say, okay, just work with this person. So that personal side needs to be also developed, right? So you should also be able to work with another person without having to have any sort of conflicts. But most importantly, teaching each other sometime becomes really, really helpful in order to refine your knowledge and your skill sets, and without having to spending a lot of time and learning. So now what I would say is that you guys should pair with each one another. I can choose who you want to pair with, but it's going to be, I don't want to do that choosing, because that's like personal level. Maybe you want to work with somebody that you really, really like. So my thing is that if you guys, if you guys talk among each other and say, hey, let's pair up, and one person if you have all the time in the world and you want to pair with 2 person, that's not a problem. That's you managing your own time. So if you are getting homework, if you are, let's say, you wanna do some test cases and you feel like it's getting too much, and you want to pair with somebody, you have the ability to reach out to one of your classmate who is going to be willing to sit down with you, right? And again, you can simply ask like, hey, do you want to sit down for like half an hour? Do you want to sit down for an hour? And just set up that time a day before, So you know that, it's not happening on your bad timing, right? Maybe you want to go out, maybe you have things to do. Um, in that way, not only that you will be able to share knowledge among each others, but also you can keep yourself up to date until today, right? So my recommendation starting from this class, if you do feel like you need to pair with somebody, and it's not cheating, right? You pair with somebody and that person is explaining to you, that is more than enough way for you to just learn it. It's a knowledge sharing basically. So I do think that that will help both parties at this point. So if you're helping somebody, don't think you're just helping them for free or something. Oh no, now I have to do this. No, it's actually you also teaching. Trust me, the first time you'll go and sit down and explain to somebody, you will then realize how much you just learned by exposing some of the skill sets that you already know. So just keep that in mind. If you do happen to have time and somebody else reaching out to you, sit down with them, set up the time early so that way it doesn't really, interfere with their schedule. And in that time frame, you guys can go over any issues that you guys are facing. Now, with that said, today's class I'll finish a little bit early, but I want to also keep a few things in mind is that my plan for you guys is that mid-January, obviously, like some of you guys will probably already be working by January 15th. There are a few people. And there will be the rest of you guys where by January or mid-January or at least end of January, I want you guys to be ready so that we can start facing outside world, right? Um, and we can start setting up interviews and be out there instead of focusing on class. And the other thing is that the moment you are facing interviews, you really cannot focus on class anymore, right? Because you just have too many things to worry about. Um, so you want to do as much as possible right now, so that way, when you are out there looking for jobs, you don't have to think about classes. You can only think about interviews and moving forward. Okay. So just keep that in mind, guys. Like I said, it's always like that. I mean, you guys saw that in the very beginning of your class, we had 15, 20, 30, whatever is the case, like 15 people. And then slowly and slowly you can see that people are, they realize that, okay, hey, I don't have the time. Unfortunately, I can't do this. Or they realize this is not for them, or some of them actually cannot really put the time, right? Because they have 9 to 5 jobs. Uh, Unfortunately for them, they will probably see that you got a job and later in the next month or so, and they're gonna come back to us. And this happens all the time. This happens all the time. People actually, and then this actually happened this week. I think yesterday somebody called me because somebody from their batch got a job. And they reach out, oh, do I have ability to uh, you know, continue and this and that. So now I said, okay, sure, yeah, you can continue. You just have to wait until the next batch. Now he has to go through the 6 months again, right? Um, and it's gonna happen to some of the people who's gonna come back. But no matter what, think about this way, and I'll tell you with confidence, it's better to stick to just one person, whether this person is the best person or not best person, doesn't matter. When it comes about this kind of career coaching and guidance and learning real-time work-related skill sets, is because you go to the next person, he has his own style, right? And he has his own flavor in terms of learning. And I'm not saying he cannot teach you guys same way. It's just that everybody has their own way of teaching. So now you're behind because now you have to learn his way of things, right? Um, and as I said over and over again, every project is different. So the way that things that I am interpreting and saying to you guys is It's my perspective from the projects that I worked in from, because no projects are same. Every company is different, every project is different. So you go to another person, their perspective is going to be different, and it's nothing wrong. Both of us are not wrong. It's just that he has his own perspective and what he learned. So now you're going to end up spending another 6 months and going to the market, and now you're going to not only spend the 6 months, you're going to spend an additional 6 months plus the other 6 months for marketing. Right? Our marketing process is really fast, which is if you don't get a job in the first 3 weeks, that means you are not doing the right things. Um, if you didn't get the job on the first month, then you also not doing the right thing. So you should reach out and say, hey, what am I doing wrong? And I'll tell you. If you didn't get the job on your first 2 months, then you also reach out to me and say, hey, what am I doing wrong? And I'll tell you. And then you'll be fine. Even then, you'll be fine. So if you get a job after the course is finished and 3 months goes by and you got a job after 3 months, I think it's very well worth it, right? And because you didn't have to go and spend another 6 months. So you don't want to be that person, right? Don't be that person where easily gave up, thinking, oh man, I can't do this, right? You have to have faith in yourself to begin with. And then you have to push it from your side too. Even if you feel like, oh, I'm missing something, it's okay. It's okay. You just have to keep pushing until you get there. So just keep having faith in yourself. It's a small enough group, and I feel like a few of you guys will be picked up by the developer job that I was talking about. I had recently contacted the main person who's doing the hiring. He said right now it's on hold. So mid-January, they're gonna open up, and I'm gonna start to put people on that side. But the remaining of you guys, like it's only gonna be like 4 or 5 of you guys right after the first pickup, right? After we place first few people, it's only gonna be 4 or 5. So it's not a big deal for us to place all of you guys as long as you guys are willing to take the job, right? And challenge. So right now you need to tell yourself, for sure I'm gonna be getting a job by March. If that's gonna be if it's delayed or something, whatever is the case. If you know that you're going to be working by March, you should be working right now hard to yourself and just make yourself ready. So that way you can have a pleasant experience when you get your first job, right? Imagine like you got the job and now you can't sleep at night because you have to wake up and do something, or you couldn't finish the work, or you just don't know, and you're all stressed, and your husband or whatever, your wife is going to say, oh, why bother taking so much stress? Just go ahead and quit. And you may come to me and say, hey, I would like to quit, and it happens sometimes. It happens almost every bad. At least somebody comes to me and say, oh, I want to quit because I can't take the stress. Um, and and the reason why you even taking the stress is because you haven't really put that time in the very beginning. It's a career. Somebody's paying you over 100K. Just think that in. Otherwise, everybody who is right now working on retails, working on fast food industries, working on taxi, working whatever is the case, everybody would come and jump into this career, right? Because why bother doing all this odd jobs, and now you can just stay home, open your laptop for 8 hours, and you get paid 100,000, right? Everybody would do it. Everybody would do it, right? Not everybody has the patience. Before they even see the sunshine, they run away thinking, oh, it's never going to happen, right? And you don't want to be that person. So keep working hard. And I would say for next class, I'm going to give you guys homework that you will be required to do. Some of you guys did the homework from the last one, which was done in verbal way. So it's a small enough class so I know who's working and who's not working, so just keep working hard. And, we only have a month and a half, guys, to be out there. So just tell yourself it's not a lot of time. Just be ready for the real world by pushing yourself, put a couple hours extra. And most importantly, for those who feels like, you know what, I do have the time, but I feel like I am not learning enough because, I'm not covering enough topics. That's totally fine. We do have Udemy access. If you don't have an access, let me know. I'll give you the Udemy access. I don't care where you learn from, as long as you know your stuff, whether you learn it from me or somebody else, it doesn't really matter to me, right? If you learn from somebody else, that's fine. That's even better. Wow. What you need to do is you need to get on our course, right? And I can give you some tips, right? Click on my learning first, and then you can see all of the courses that we have bought over the years for you guys. 89 courses total. So let's say this is the ultimate framework we're going to learn. Actually, this is the last framework you guys are going to learn, and this is where you want to work, right? So this is the last framework we're going to be learning, and I'm going to teach you guys that. But this one, if you want to get started, you can get started. But most importantly, you got the basic Selenium, basic Java, right? You got the manual testing classes right here. Let's see. Let me see if there's a Java, just Java. So if I do this Java, and you can see just Java, for Java. And if you feel like, oh, wait a minute, I just don't know what Java, like I don't have a lot of confidence, excuse me, you can go ahead and finish this course in 2 days. You just set aside the time and say, you know what, I'm going to turn off my phone and close the door until I finish this course and come out. And that's it. But don't do it like, oh, I'm just going to watch the video and that's it. Do it while this guy is showing you. Pause and play and do it. That's when you'll learn. Coding, you cannot learn by just seeing it. Okay. So just keep that in mind. So like I said, it doesn't matter where you learn from. You could have somebody in your family who's working as QA and maybe they're teaching you. That's totally fine, right? Do it that way. No matter where you're learning from, on the mid-January, everything will be coming handy for us to place you out there in the market. Again, like I said, 3 interviews set up and you have your job. 3 or 4 at max, right? Sometimes some of these students, I think like with Juma, for Juma, it took, she was in her last batch actually. So for her, it was 3 interview, I think. On the first interview, the guy promised her the job, but unfortunately the guy also said, if this, then I will get you the job. So he said, look, a lot of people are still, that I have to interview, but you did very well. I'm gonna let you know by next week, but I think you did very well. I'm gonna take you if nobody else, turns out to have experience that we were looking for. So they were looking for a very specific technology. We didn't have it. He's like, okay, you know your stuff, but it's just that we're looking for this specific technology. So unfortunately, they found somebody with that technology, so they took that person. On the second interview, we did fine. Third interview, we got an offer, right? Third interview with another company. So she works for the government right now. Let's just say that. But is that easy, right? In a third interview, is that easy? Only is possible if you follow my guides, right? But if you look elsewhere, if you know people in tech, and there is few other like micro, what's that called? Big tech. Big tech tried to work with me. Actually, they asked me to open up their second location and manage the entire location myself. I said, no, why would I do that? I have my own. So Big tech, I know all of the instructors in that institute, and but obviously I'm not going to be part of it. And so similar to that, there are other classes in Jackson Heights. Jackson Heights alone have probably like 5 or 6, but none of them are expert on job placement. Okay. And I can tell you, right, like our expertise on job placement is more because we work for actual consulting company. We have our own people, like we have a payroll that we maintain. So that way people work We get paid from the company directly and we pay them. All right. So we do have active payrolls and everything. Um, so it's different than just somebody teaching, not knowing what's happening in the real world, right? So keep in mind, like I said, just get this motivation going. We don't have a lot of time. It's December 10th. We have 2 months at max for us to be ready. And we're still missing few topics, right? We're midway to the Selenium. We're gonna be finishing Selenium and Java at the same time because we still have to cover some of the advanced topic on the Java side. And then as soon as that happens, we're gonna go on the database. So database classes, I need to know when to place you guys on those because Shantaba is gonna be teaching that classes. So I may do it right after we come back from all these vacations, December, New Year, whatever is the case. But I want to finish the Selenium and Java before that. So the next 3-4 classes is going to be really, really important. Homework is going to be important. But most importantly, your practice is going to be really, really important. So just get to know it. If you feel like you don't know, the code looks still strange, then do more hands-on. If you feel like you're behind on Java, do this course. Learn to be self-sufficient. Don't wait for us to give you everything. We're gonna get there eventually, but you can already get yourself some knowledge. So when we get there, you're gonna be more comfortable to take it. Okay. All right, guys. So with that said, today we're gonna end it right here. Any questions? Anything that I can answer?
What is the homework for next class? Sorry.
I'm just gonna send you a link. I think I realized when I tell you guys verbally, it gets lost, right? So yeah, some of you guys did the homework, and it wasn't very clear. You guys did it on IDE. So I'm gonna just go ahead and type it up, put it into the way that we do, put it into a link and send it to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And then yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Can you? I know it's probably late, but can you please write a code that verifies the image? I don't think you touched on that.
Yeah, image, we even in the real world, we don't do image testing as because think about it, when you do image testing, you're doing pixel by pixel comparison, right? And if you do it that way, if you do pixel by pixel, you can only target like the size of the pixel, right? Now, if you shift your image by slightly or your color is slightly changed because of the browser, because of the because you're running on Safari now, but you used to run it on Chrome, it'll fail, right? A test is very sensitive when you do pixel by pixel comparison. Selenium doesn't do pixel by pixel comparison by itself. So what you have to do, you have to add another library, just like we do it on the on your Java Maven, right? On the pom.xml. So you'll have to add something that will do pixel by pixel comparison. So Selenium will help you until the point where you download that image, right? So you will download the image using Selenium. And then now that the image is downloaded, you know exactly where the image is, right? You provide the location to your new helper or the library, and you tell it to do the comparison, right? When you do that, your test is brutal, meaning it will pass sometime, it will fail sometime. There is nothing you can do to fix it. There is nothing you can do because you can't physically change any code because it is doing it. The code is already pre-written to do that comparison. So that's where is the problem, right? We don't write brutal tests. We try not to write tests that will fail here and that will fail there, and we have no control because then it gives us false and positive situation, right? Yeah, so just keep in mind. And then we don't do video test. We don't do mobile testing directly from Selenium. We have other tools for mobile testing. Yeah, just keep that in mind. Any other question, guys? All right, so let's call it a day. Like I said, do the homework and then try to be connected with somebody that you feel like is more friendly enough to you, and you want to do some pair programming. Maybe that person knows more than you, then you want to get that knowledge transferred to you, right? So do it like that. And you can probably meet up with more than one person anyway, right? From here, you guys are like what, 5 or 6 people, including yeah, few people couldn't join today. They texted me earlier, so that's fine. So it's probably like 7 or 8 of you guys total. So yeah, just see if you feel like you need help, then reach out. That's it, right? I'm sure those that are already working and they're fine, they're not gonna reach out, right? They're fine, right? So if you need it, you reach out to them and try to see if you can do some knowledge transfer. Even if you don't have anything to talk about, just say, let's do some knowledge transfer, and then say, okay, how are you able to do this? Or can you walk me through what's this and what's that, right? All right. All right, so enjoy your rest of the weekend, guys, and I will see you guys on Tuesday, and then just look out for the homework. I'll send out a link very soon.
So if you could please upload the recordings and the homework soon, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I will actually do that because I need to do that for a few reasons. One is that few people stop showing up, right? And I know that unfortunately they may have given up or so. And then few people missing more than 3 homework. So those we will have to talk to them separately to see if they still want to be continuing. If they do, then they have to do the homework. Otherwise, we're gonna drop them. Okay, yeah. So hopefully by Tuesday I'll have that ready.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.